very warm welcome to everybody. Can you hear me well at the back? Yes, thank you. So very warm welcome. My name is Dr. Edith Szivás. I'm a tourism development expert and a tourism human resources development expert. I started working in tourism 20 years ago when I worked on a tourism development strategy in Hungary. It's the country where I was born. And then I moved to the UK. I spent 20 years in the UK running tourism programs at a university and working as a tourism development consultant. And 2 years ago, I set up base in Dubai, where I now have my own consultancy company, a tourism development consultancy company. You can hear me, yes? So the topic of my talk today is business opportunities for women in tourism. And I will focus on 4 topics to get there, to answer this question. One is, what are the key investment sectors in tourism? Why invest in tourism? Why is it a good sector to invest in? Thirdly, what are the latest trends in international tourism that we have to take into account when we consider investing in tourism, starting a tourism business? And I focus obviously on the key topic, what are the investment and business opportunities for women in tourism? I'm not a newcomer to Saudi Arabia. I'm extremely fortunate. I have been here probably 4 times. I think this is my 5th visit. And last year, I spent a fair amount of time last year when I was leading a very, very interesting, fascinating project, which was a joint project between SCTA, the Saudi Commission for Tourism and Antiquities, and UNWTO, the UN World Tourism Organization. This project looked at the role of tourism in the economic development of the local communities in Saudi Arabia. This project, you can see from the pictures, took me to, well, obviously to Riyadh, to Dammam, the eastern province, Taif, Medina, Al-Ula, amazing places with great tourism development and tourism development potential. Would like to say thanks to quite a few people who were instrumental in that project. Prince Sultan, who gave his personal guidance for the project and supported it throughout. Khaled Al-Dakhil, Dr. Shaker Al-Saleh, Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Hazza, who is here, Ms. Basma Al-Maiman, the Mass Center within SCTA, the ILO, and very importantly, the local communities, the men and women that we met throughout the project and gave their time extremely generously. I will just explain to you very briefly these projects, because the information that I will give to you today, a lot of it comes from the experience that we gained through this project. So this project was aimed to help the economic diversification of the kingdom, to assess and demonstrate the role and contribution of tourism to the development of local communities in the kingdom, to reinforce the employability of Saudi nationals in the sector, to examine the attractiveness and accessibility of tourism jobs to people here in Saudi Arabia, and very importantly, and there was a lot of emphasis on this, to identify job and business opportunities for the local communities, and I will talk about this later. I told you that this project took me and took us to various locations. I'm not going to go through, obviously, but I wanted to give you an insight into all the stakeholders that we consulted throughout the project: public sector, private sector, the tourist attractions, tourism education and training institutions, the local community. So for example, in Dammam, in the eastern province, we visited the Qatif handicraft shopkeepers, the handicraft shops, in Rashid Mall, which really we saw as one of the best practice examples of women involved in handicrafts and local food production. I'm not going to go through, but similar list of people that we saw in Taif and in Alula. So some key findings. Well, we found wherever we went, to whomever we talked, we found that there is a very clear and huge recognition of SCTA in developing tourism in the kingdom, and in its support for helping local communities to benefit from tourism development. We also very clearly saw that there is a huge potential for tourism development. In Saudi Arabia, the resources are here. It's a country that is extremely rich in resources, natural and cultural resources, which provides a solid basis for tourism development. We also identified that there is a need to develop tourist hubs with competitive products, with investment and of international standards. We found was one of the key questions, whether the local communities support tourism development. And I can say that in the 3 case study locations, Dammam, Taif, Alula, we found over very support from the local communities for tourism development. And we also found that people in the local communities are very eager to get involved in tourism development. But we also found that they are not always aware of the opportunities. They are very keen to get involved. They don't necessarily know the opportunities that are available. Talking about the women is very much the case. Met a women's group in the locations. They are very keen to get involved. They were asking us how. I tried to answer this question. We also met ladies working in the tourism sector. I will talk about that in a moment. So why invest in the tourism sector? International figures. 9% of global GDP comes from tourism. So tourism accounts for 9% of global GDP. Accounts for 1 in every 11 jobs. 6% of all exports in goods and services come from tourism. And of course, these figures are growing. So it's definitely an industry that matters, and it is an industry that has an enormous growth potential. International tourist arrivals. One of the measures of tourism internationally is how many people travel, how many international travelers, tourists we have. You can't see the numbers, obviously. In 1980, not a long time ago, there were about 250 million international travelers crossing borders, traveling. 2 years ago, we crossed the 1 billion boundary. And by 2030, UNWTO forecasts there will be 1.8 billion international travelers traveling. The pie chart shows you the contribution, the share from tourism from the different regions of the world. Europe, Middle East, Asia, Americas, Africa. The green slice is the Middle East. So what you see in 1980, the Middle East accounted for 3% of all international tourist arrivals. By 2010, it was 6%. By 2030, will be 8%. Imagine this trend is this slice, the green slice, the Middle East, is going to grow. A quote from UNWTO Secretary General Talib Rifai, which is very relevant to our discussion here today. Tourism is a major driver of our new socio-economic model. Tourism means jobs, business opportunities for small and medium enterprises. The renewal of urban and rural areas, very relevant to Saudi Arabia, and if properly managed, the preservation and promotion of the country's natural and cultural heritage. You see how relevant it is to what SCTA and what the kingdom is trying to do, and what role tourism can play and what role we can all play here. My next topic, what I promised to talk about, is what are the key sectors, what are the key investment segments in tourism. What I wanted to highlight is the fact that when people hear about tourism, what comes immediately to mind is, well, it is hotels, it is accommodation sector, it is furnished apartments. There is a very big sector in Saudi Arabia of furnished apartments. But if you think about it, tourism is much wider than that, and consists of a number of sectors. Well, obviously food and beverage, transportation includes the airlines, the taxis, the buses that take people around, the car rental companies, the travel agencies and tour operators, the cultural services, the museums, cultural attractions, sports and recreational services. Huge potential, by the way, in Saudi Arabia, both for the cultural sector and also for sports tourism, tour guiding, and other sectors. And I highlighted just one of the many others, which is event management and event organizing. So when you look at this, then we see that tourism is really a very wide sector, and it's really not only hotels and accommodation, although it is, of course, a very big part of tourism. So when you think about investing in tourism, you can think about all these different subsectors. Next topic, I promised to identify and explain to you a few key international trends that are relevant, and that we should consider, anybody who is thinking of investing in tourism, starting a tourism business, should be aware of these topics, these international trends. And this also, I identified the ones that I saw through this project last year, that there is a need for this recognition in Saudi Arabia. Sustainability, competitiveness, authenticity, and the value chain and visitor experience. Very quickly, I will talk about this one after the other, very briefly. Sustainability, we use this word a lot, sustainable tourism, and sometimes it's not very clear to people what it is. Very often they think sustainability is just to do with the environment. Definition, UNWTO definition, tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts. So the key here is the current and future, and economy, society, culture, and the environment. While addressing the needs of the visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host communities, so quite complex. The second question that people ask when they hear about sustainability, very many people equate it to only certain types of tourism. They think only ecotourism and tourism, very small scale tourism in a very natural environment can be sustainable. Well, all sorts of tourism, all forms of tourism can be or should aim for sustainability. The pictures, probably you know better than me, but the first picture is Alula, and the second picture is from a resort in Dammam. Sustainability is not a new concept. Really, it goes back to 1992, when there was you can't see the data, you can't see the letters, but in 1992 there was something called the Rio Summit, and that's when really the concept of sustainability was born. And then lots of initiatives since then, the Global Code of Ethics for Tourism, Millennium Development Goals, lots of meetings. And 2 years ago, the Rio Plus 20 meeting. So 20 years after the 1992 meeting, there was another global gathering, and people looked back, policymakers looked back to see what happened in sustainability in the 20 years. So I mentioned that sustainability is not only eco-tourism and it's to do with the environment. So tourism, if you want it to be sustainable, it has to be economically viable. It gives jobs, business opportunities. It has to make a financial return. The gentleman is from a museum, from one of the destinations. It has to respect the socio-cultural authenticity of the local communities, the traditional values. The picture is from Al-Khobar, Dammam. And it should make optimal use of the environmental assets and maintain ecological processes, and very importantly, help conserve natural heritage and biodiversity. This picture is not from Saudi Arabia, this is from Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE, a very good example of eco-design. So while we are striving to maintain the environment, be economically sustainable, look after the local culture, we also have to make sure that the visitors, the tourists, the consumers have a high level of satisfaction. We are actually meeting their needs, and they are also aware of sustainability principles. So it's a model that has been developed. So we are looking at the visitor, the tourist, the industry, the tourism sector, the community, and then the economic, social, environmental, and cultural aspects. Destination competitiveness. Competitiveness was the other topic I wanted to flag up. Very complex. What makes a destination competitive? Well, there are lots of issues with the market, lots of factors related to the industry, resources, financial, human resources, tangible, intangible resources, and then the external environment, the financial sectors, funding, etc. I will not go into detail, I'm conscious of the time. I wanted to show you this. There is something called the Global Competitiveness Report, developed by the World Economic Forum, and it does lots of things, but the main outcome is that it ranks countries as tourist destinations in terms of their competitiveness. And I pulled out the countries from the Middle East region, GCC, Levant countries, North African countries, and see where they stand in the competitiveness list. And also the number that you see is the ranking worldwide out of 140 countries. 140 countries were assessed. So from these countries, from the Middle Eastern countries, UAE is the first, 28th globally. Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a ranking of 62 out of 140 countries, which is very good. And very importantly, for the topic of business and investment, it ranks 38th, so even better, on the business environment for tourism. So this is good news. Algeria is not ranking so well. My husband is from Algeria, so I had to put it on the list. I wanted to talk about the value chain approach and the customer experience. In the past, when people developed tourism destinations and products, they focused on the product. I will develop this. The thinking now is, we think about the experience. What will the tourist, the visitor experience? And for that, we look at the whole journey. The journey is more than just the physical journey, taking the plane. So before we go somewhere, we dream, we plan, we book, we experience, and then hopefully we have some memories, some good memories of that journey. And it's very important. So if you think about the customer experience, the tourist experience, think about it. Whichever business you set up in tourism, think about the whole process. The person, the visitor, the tourist, before they come, they have an idea, they are dreaming, they have information or they don't have information enough. Give them sufficient information. This is marketing, online, etc. Help with the booking, help with the arrangements, so make it smooth, the actual arrival. Give a unique experience, memorable experience. And if it's relevant, to some businesses it's relevant, develop customer relationship. If they stayed in your hotel, send an email or send a birthday card, or remind them of the experience and turn them into repeat visitors, repeat customers. The experience should be memorable, should be engaging and personable, and it should be authentic. And the picture is beautiful Alula, Amada Insala from Alula. I now move on really to focus on women. And again, the information came through this last year's project. So what we found that the perception of tourism being a suitable career for women in Saudi Arabia is changing, and employers are increasingly offering opportunities for women to work in their businesses, and communities are increasingly accepting and support women working in the sector. So we spoke to lots of women, lots of ladies. They are very interested to work in the sector. We identified that there is a need in line with this, and to help women to set up businesses and work in the sector, there is a need to further develop the tourism education and training sector specifically for women. And very clearly identified that a lot can be done through efficient HR policies and practices. For example, a key issue is the working hours, the shifts, and obviously help with transportation. So when companies get the experience in this area, it really will help women to get meaningful jobs in tourism. Tourism provides very useful entry points for women to engage in the tourism sector. Community-based initiatives are starting, and they are very helpful. And they help with, of course, with the economic development, they help with the family economic development, and they help educating women. I wanted to talk a little bit about crafts. A lot of effort already went in to help men and women develop the handicraft sector in the kingdom. SCTA has various programs, excellent programs and initiatives. What we identified through the project is that there is a need to transform the handicraft sector into an income-generating sector. So at the moment, we saw a lot of evidence that people are producing handicrafts for the sake of producing handicrafts, but it's not fully an income-generating, not enough, not sufficiently an income-generating sector. An advice, whoever is planning to set up a craft business, an advice, it's very important to identify handicrafts and also food products that are attractive to the visitors. And we have to bear in mind that different types of visitors have different needs. So some people who come from big distances and they take a flight, they can't, it's not that easy to put on the flight a huge basket. They need something small and portable, and the tastes are different for the different communities. So it's very important to learn about the visitor, what are their preferences. It's very important to build effective distribution channels and marketing. Exhibit the local products in venues such as airport, get agreements with the hotels to be able to sell the handicrafts. If you do, make sure that the shop actually opens at the time when the guests typically check in or check out, so they can actually buy the products. And if you set up a business and you employ people to do the handicrafts, to produce, well, train them properly in the market needs, not only the technique, but also in the marketing, design, and distribution channel. Local food, well, there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of scope to include local food and offer it to visitors. Offer healthy, locally produced food in the hotels. So very little evidence of that at the moment. There is a huge scope. This is an opportunity for sure to invest. If you set up such a business, it's very important to give sufficient information to the visitors in advance, during their stay about these opportunities, and liaise with the distributors. Farm stays, ecologies, is another sector that has a huge potential in Saudi Arabia. At the moment, this activity seems to be ad hoc, a little bit ad hoc, and it's not easy to, as a visitor, it's not easy to find the information. Where are the farms that we can visit? What time? So, and if you think about, there is an expatriate market working in the kingdom. They are also eager to, not only the Saudi people, but also the expatriates are eager to visit, travel around the kingdom, and there is a need for information and the structured opportunity. The farm visits, a very good opportunity to connect for the Saudi people, to connect families, connect with culture, with their heritage. And expatriates also would very much welcome the opportunity to visit farms. For this sector,